How do you do? To learn something about the importance of freedom, we may note what happens when we chain a dog, build a wall around a nation, close a border, and restrict emigration. The dog becomes vicious. Penned-up people begin voting with their feet, finding their way through barriers, even at the risk of death. We're about to meet a man whose escape succeeded by the thinnest of margins and led him to a new life in a new land, when his heart and mind and life were unshackled. One nation in Southeast Europe is distinctly different from the others. This is Romania, whose people speak the only Romance language in use in the Balkans. Other than that, however, conditions for the Romanians are much like those for others in the Soviet bloc. The man whose story we have to tell, born a Romanian, decided while still in his teens that he would somehow get to the New World. You'll learn how he managed. You'll learn a great deal more as we bring you the true story of Petru Lulusa, now on Unshackled.
I was born in Coruscant in the Romanian wine country in 1950. I am the sixth in a family of 9 children. I love to sing, and even when I was a middle teenager, my voice was naturally good enough so that I could go into a nightclub, sing, and receive free drinks from the management and the customers. When drinking, though, I became wild and I got into fights. Sometimes I was arrested and had to pay a fine. At other times, I was badly beaten, went home bleeding and disheveled, and I was a problem to my mother.
Peter! Oh, Peter, what has happened to you this time?
Oh, they were bigger than I was.
You should think of that before you begin to fight.
Even if they were bigger, they had to use weapons.
What kind of weapons?
Well, they hit me with a chair and broke a bottle on my head.
It's a wonder you weren't killed.
Oh, don't worry, Mother. I have a very hard head.
Oh, I know that only too well. I've been trying to put some good sense in it since you were a little boy.
For tonight, just help me get the blood off, please.
I will. And look at your clothes. They're a disgrace.
Don't worry about that now, Mother. My head hurts.
I should think it would. Do you know, Peter, when you go out for the evening, you look like an executive. When you come home, you look like a pig.
When I was 16, I went to the city of Arad and learned foundry work in a trade school. There, a year later, I met a young man from Canada.
Yes, Peter, I live in Canada, but I go into the United States very often.
No problems at the border between the two countries?
Of course not. It's really just a very small formality.
If you go to the United States, are you allowed to take a job?
Sure, why not?
Would a foundry worker in Canada ever be able to pay for a car?
Of course. Without it, how would he get to and from work?
Oh, one of these days I'm going to find a way to get to America.
Canada or the United States?
Either one would do very well. I just want to get to America. In 1968, I graduated from trade school and got a job in the same city as the school. Within a year, I was very serious about wanting to get out of Romania and began discussing it with a friend.
What makes you think it is possible?
I think that if you want something badly enough and are ready to do anything to get it, there is always a good possibility, George.
Do you know anything about getting false papers?
No. I'm thinking about making the big escape without the papers.
I don't think it'll work.
Well, the first step shouldn't be too hard to manage.
You mean getting out of Romania?
That's it. Just ordinary identification papers will do for a short visit to Yugoslavia.
That's true, but what have you gained by that?
Well, once you're in Yugoslavia, there's only one border between you and the West.
You mean the border between Yugoslavia and Italy at Trieste, then?
Of course, of course. Now, I know the border from Romania into Hungary is also easy to cross. After that, though, where are you? You still have to go through Czechoslovakia or Austria. I say the right way is through Yugoslavia to Italy.
What's the best way to cross into Yugoslavia?
Well, I have already talked to the people at a travel agency. It is very easy to join a group tour for a 1 or 2 day visit to Belgrade in Yugoslavia. That is how I will go.
You trust me enough to tell me this?
Oh, you are my friend. And this plan is so big, I have to tell someone or I will explode. Even though I was in a communist country, I had some knowledge of things religious. My parents had their religious beliefs, and I had gone to church with some of my cousins, but I had no power to stay on course. As I developed my plans to travel, though, I tried to make an agreement with God. I said, "If you will get me to America, I will give you my heart." On August 24, 1969, I boarded a bus headed for Yugoslavia, capital of Belgrade. For money, I had about 300 dinars. I also took some knickknacks to sell to people on the street in Belgrade. Well, when we reached that city and got off the bus, I went to the railroad station to inquire about trains. I was given a timetable and spent some time in a park where I sat and studied the train schedules. I found what seemed to be the best choice, the International Express, running all the way from Belgrade to Paris. Of course, I knew that when the train reached the Italian border, if not sooner, all the passengers would have to show their papers, which I didn't have. That was true, of course, for passengers who paid their fare. My plan was a little different. I knew about the water tank at the end of each car, and knew the cover of the tank was held by only 2 screws. Possibly I could lower myself into the tank with just my face above the water. The other possibility I had thought about was to crawl under the train and hang on to some of the bars that helped to form the structure of the chassis. Because I had never really studied the underside of a train, that idea was mostly guesswork. While I sat on a park bench and ate some bread and salami that I had bought, I took out a coin and spun and caught it. A man passing by saw it and stopped to speak to me in Romanian.
Are you trying to make some kind of a decision?
Yes, you're Romanian.
Yes, I'm a Romanian. I'm now living here in Yugoslavia. What are you spinning a coin for?
I'll tell you the truth. I want to get to America.
All the world wants to get there.
Yes, but I am serious about it.
And what about the coin?
Well, I said to myself, heads I go on and tails I go back home on the bus.
And then what did the coin tell you to do?
Well, I think it lied to me. It came down tails. Now toss it again.
Well, what does it say?
Again, it tells me to go home.
So?
So I'll have to spin it a 3rd time. That's better. Here, it came up to heads.
Then you're going to America, huh?
If I can. It would be better if I had a ticket at least part of the way, but I'm afraid of the people at the ticket windows. I don't know how to ask for a ticket in that language, but would you buy me a train ticket?
No. But I'll teach you what to say.
What is that?
You say, "Dai tu mi ednu kartu do Sejana." That means, give me a ticket to Sejana.
And what is Sejana?
It's the last stop before the train crosses the border into Italy. That's where the border guards go through the train with dogs.
Let me try to say the right words again. Dai tu mi ednu kartu do Sejana. Is that right?
The words are right, but you say them like a Romanian.
Is that bad?
No. Not as long as you have a passport and all your papers are in order.
That wasn't very comforting. Even so, on that rainy Monday afternoon, I went back to the station and went to a ticket window where the clerk was a woman. If I expected more gentle treatment for that reason, I was mistaken. That woman listened to my terrible accent and began to scream at me.
What makes you think I have to sell a ticket to anyone as crazy as you are? Get away from here. Go to another window and ruin that clerk's day. Get away from here, you devil!
I understood almost nothing of what she had said to me. A couple of words of Serbo-Croatian got through to me, though. One was Benesti, which means crazy. The other was Vrak, and that means devil. For the rest, it didn't really matter. I knew the answer was no. I started to go to another window and then ran away from that one because I was afraid. I wandered around the station a while longer and finally approached a young man who looked as though he might be a student. I had some hope he might be less aggressive than the clerk at the ticket window. I used my line about, "Give to me a ticket to Sejana," and then followed it with another. I said, "Romania, fugitive Italia." Now, you may wonder how I came to know that word fugitive. Very simple. They had shown the old American television series called The Fugitive on Romania television, so I had learned that word. Well, the young man didn't seem shocked and didn't call the police, so I gave him 100 dinars, and he bought me a ticket to the city of Zagreb. The price for that part-way destination was only 56 dinars, but I signed to the young man that he should keep the change. I was carrying a black plastic bag and bought some bread and chocolate to carry in it. Sometime a little before 7 in the evening, I went out to the platform, holding my ticket to Zagreb and my black plastic bag. A young lady who had a kind face came by, and I stopped her.
What was that you just said?
Romania, fugitive Italia.
You mean you are Romanian and you are trying to get to Italy, but illegally?
Romania, fugitive Italia.
All right, I understand. I wish you did, too. You mean you want me to hold your ticket? Is that it?
Yeah.
I guess the answer is yes. All right, now we'll get on the train, and you'd better stay close to me.
That young lady was very kind. She offered to share some food with me. It seemed, too, that she also held a ticket taking her as far as Zagreb. After we had eaten, and I had practiced acting like a deaf person who was unable to speak, I went to sleep. I was awakened by the arrival of the conductor gathering tickets. As always, he was accompanied by a policeman. But the police decided to remain outside the compartment to smoke a cigarette in the corridor. So, he did not learn about the discrepancy the conductor complained of.
Your ticket, please, young lady.
Here's mine, and this is the ticket of the young man beside me.
Why doesn't he give it to me himself?
He's afflicted and can't speak.
I see. This is only ticket for the railroad fare. He should also have a seat ticket and a special ticket for the International Express.
Can he pay those extra charges to you?
Oh, yes, of course.
I'll tell him to pay up. Dinars! 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 Yes. That's 10. Now, 10 more. And 10 more. Conductor, is that enough?
That's enough. You even get a little change.
It was almost midnight when the lady woke me up to tell me we were pulling into Zagreb. When the train stopped, she got off, and I have never seen her since. I walked down the station platform beside the train. 2 cars down was one with doors open on both the platform side and the opposite one. I jumped up the steps, crossed over, and went down into the darkness on the other side. A little farther down the line, I crawled under a car and looked for metal projections to hold on to. I put my arms on one metal bar, my thigh on the axle, and my feet on another bar. I knew what that sound meant. A man was walking the length of the train and striking each wheel with a hammer. If the sound was not right, it could mean a crack in the metal and a more careful inspection before the train was allowed to move. I remembered hearing of a man who rested his weight on the axle, which caused the hammer sound to be wrong, and the man was caught. So, as the inspector came to the wheel next to me, I lifted my weight off the axle. I got away with it. The wheel sounded right and the man never saw me. I was pleased with myself until the train began to move. Then I learned that the axle on which my thighs were resting was beginning to rotate. I found an insulated steam pipe between the chassis and the car floor and climbed up onto it. Then, close under the floor, I found more bars to sit on. That was a long and tough night's ride, with dust and stones being lifted by the passing of the train. Even worse, I was close to the outlet for the car's sanitary equipment. By daylight, I was covered with filth of all kinds. At 7 in the morning, the train came to a stop in Sežana, which is the Yugoslavian checkpoint before Trieste on the Italian side. We were there for 2 hours. Soldiers carrying Kalashnikov assault rifles and holding guard dogs on leash walked up and down the platform. No one saw me, though, until 3 workmen came along checking the wheels.
Hey, Marco.
Yeah.
You see what I see?
Oh, I thought I saw something, Luca, but now that I think about it, I must have been mistaken.
Me too.
At last, the train moved again, and the next time it stopped was Trieste. There I could hear Italian being spoken. I was very thirsty, so I crawled out from under the car and went to a man who was standing on the platform. I must have been quite a sight. I was filthy and foul-smelling. People on the train and on the platform watched with great interest as I spoke to the man. Italia?
Si, Italia.
Oh, thank God.
You are a refugee. Then follow me. I'll take you to the Carabinieri, and they'll check you out and take you on to a refugee camp.
Hey, refugee!
Those people were so pleased to see a dirty, bedraggled fugitive refugee safely over the frontier that they cheered and applauded and whistled. You know, everyone seems to have a good opinion of freedom. I was checked for a criminal record by Interpol and passed down to a refugee camp. There, some Romanian-speaker translators helped me.
You say there is someone in the American city of Detroit who will act as your sponsor if you go there.
Yes, he is the pastor of the Romanian Baptist Church.
In that case, I think you can expect to be allowed to go to the United States within less than a year. Until then, you can remain here.
On April 28, 1970, I reached Detroit in the care of the pastor who is my sponsor.
Can you believe, even now, that all these things have happened to you and ended so well?
Hardly, and I was so ignorant of what I was really doing most of the time.
But God knew your situation, Peter. All the cleverness you could develop, or all the strength, wouldn't have made a bit of difference without God. The Bible says, if God be for us, who can be against us?
Even there at the checkpoint, the guard dogs didn't sniff me out.
I'd like to say that was a miracle, but I suspect the real reason is that you didn't even smell human.
Oh, you may be right about that.
The real miracle will come when you receive Christ as your Lord and Savior. Then you'll have eternal life, and that's the greatest miracle of all.
Just 2 months after reaching Detroit, I received Christ, and my new life began. At a church convention, I met Gabriella, who came from Chicago, and in 1974 we were married. Meanwhile, I began studying voice at the American Conservatory. Now, though, the Lord has given me a new song.
Peter has sung with the Chicago Symphony, has studied in Italy. His aim was grand opera, but the Lord had that new song for Peter, many of them actually, and here is one.
So long of thirst my weary soul did languish, and out of earth my soul could satisfy. But when to Christ I turn in bitter anguish, not longer tarry. Come now to Christ and drink your soul renew. He knows your need, the heavy load you carry. This blessed fount is open now for you. Oh, I have found it, the crystal fountain, where all my life's deep needs have been supplied, so freely flowing from a Calvary's mountain. And now my soul is fully satisfied.
Great. And I know you've sung at churches, evangelistic meetings, and rallies, and before some really gigantic audiences. During this dramatization, Peter, someone else played Petru Lulusa. Now, though, I'd like the real Petru Lulusa to speak for himself.
Hello there. It was quite emotional for me to go through this act that I still don't believe I went through, but I'm here in the States, and I'm very happy that I found God here, though God had to bring me to many, many different things until I understood what He wants from me. And now I know that all He wants from every one of us is our hearts. And I'm so thankful that I found Him.